The Atlantic was a theater of silence and terror, a vast expanse where ships could vanish without warning, leaving only questions, rumors, and the icy knowledge of danger lurking beneath the waves. During World War II, the lifeline connecting Britain, the United States, and Allied forces was its convoys, merchant vessels laden with supplies, troops, and equipment, escorted by warships meant to protect them from German U-boats prowling the depths. Yet, despite careful planning, advanced radar and escort strategies, countless convoys simply disappeared. Ships were never found, crews vanished, and sometimes not a single survivor remained to tell the tale. The story of the Ghost Convoys begins with the logistical urgency of wartime Britain. Every shipment of food, weapons, fuel, and medical supplies was vital. Without these convoys, the survival of cities and armies alike was at risk. Merchant ships sailed in tight formations, often hundreds of vessels at a time, each accompanied by destroyers, corvettes, and later aircraft patrols. The Atlantic became a chessboard, and each convoy a critical piece, moving across the board under constant threat from unseen predators. The U-boat campaign was ruthless. German submarines, operating in coordinated wolf packs, hunted in the darkness, striking with torpedoes that could sink a freighter in moments. Night attacks were particularly deadly. Convoy commanders employed zigzag courses, sonar detection, and depth charges, but these measures were far from foolproof. For every ship that made it safely to port, others simply disappeared, leaving empty water and a trail of speculation about what had happened. Some of these lost ships became legends among sailors. Names were whispered in mess halls and barracks, accompanied by tales of ghostly encounters. Ships that appeared out of fog, only to vanish again. Radio transmissions that ended abruptly, and unexplained explosions that left no evidence of attack. Survivors described the eerie quiet after a torpedo strike, when the sea swallowed men and metal alike, leaving only ripples in the dark water. Convoy escorts faced enormous pressure. Destroyer captains had to balance the defense of their own ships with the protection of vulnerable cargo vessels. Decisions made in seconds could mean life or death for hundreds of crew members. Despite advanced detection systems and coordinated patrols, the Atlantic offered the perfect environment for disappearance. Fog, storms, and the sheer expanse of water could conceal the movements of U-boats and the fate of ships. Intelligence played a crucial role. Code-breaking efforts, including the work at Bletchley Park, provided occasional insights into U-boat positions. Yet even with decrypted communications, the Atlantic remained unpredictable. Some convoys sailed directly into ambushes despite careful planning. Others vanished after reporting normal conditions, leaving historians and naval officers to wonder whether enemy action, weather, or mechanical failure had claimed them. The human stories behind the ghost convoys are striking. Merchant mariners, often civilians pressed into dangerous service, faced months at sea under constant threat. Naval escorts endured relentless tension, knowing that a single mistake could allow a submarine to sink a vital vessel. Families waited in vain at ports, hoping for letters or news that never arrived. Each disappearance represented not just the loss of cargo, but of life, courage, and the fragile hope that Britain could endure the prolonged war at sea. Technological limitations compounded the danger. Early sonar and radar could detect only so much, and the vast Atlantic waters provided countless hiding places for U-boats. Convoys relied on coordination, speed, and mutual protection, yet even these measures could fail. Storms could scatter ships, disable engines, and mask attacks, turning a single misstep into disaster. Among the ghost convoys, some incidents were particularly enigmatic. Entire groups of ships disappeared without a trace, leaving only empty ocean and sporadic debris. Official reports noted the loss, but often lacked details. Sailors returning from other missions described the haunting silence where hundreds of lives had once been. These stories were compounded by rumors of sabotage, secret weapons, and inexplicable mechanical failures, though most were likely the deadly combination of weather, enemy action, and sheer misfortune. The psychological toll on Allied sailors was enormous. Knowing that a convoy could vanish in minutes created a constant state of tension. Every shadow in the water, every distant sonar ping could signal danger. Yet despite fear, determination, and duty prevailed. Sailors continued to sail, merchants continued to load cargo, and escorts continued to patrol, understanding that the survival of the nation depended on the success of these convoys. By 1942, tactics evolved. Convoy size, escort composition, and air coverage were optimized. Long-range patrol aircraft could scout ahead for U-boats, and convoy routes were adjusted based on intelligence reports. These adaptations reduced losses but did not eliminate them. The Atlantic remained a graveyard for vessels and crews alike, where even the most carefully planned operations could result in mysterious disappearances. By 1941, the Atlantic had become a theater of high-stakes chess, where every convoy was a crucial piece and every U-boat a hidden predator. Convoy battles escalated in intensity as Germany perfected the use of wolf packs, coordinated groups of submarines patrolling the North Atlantic in search of vulnerable Allied supply lines. Allied planners quickly realized that individual escorts or small convoy formations were insufficient. The strategy of concentrated escort fleets, often reinforced with destroyers, corvettes, and later escort carriers, became central to protecting vital shipments. Despite these measures, the wolf packs were devastating. A single submarine, more often a coordinated group, could stalk a convoy for days, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Merchant vessels, often slow and lightly armed, were highly vulnerable. Radar and sonar offered some protection, but the vastness of the ocean made detection and interception a constant challenge. Commanders had to anticipate enemy movements, adjust routes, and manage the unpredictable variables of weather and mechanical reliability. Night attacks became particularly terrifying. U-boats relied on darkness and fog to approach undetected, launching torpedoes at multiple targets in rapid succession. Explosions echoed across the ocean, followed by silence, with entire sections of a convoy vanishing beneath the waves. Survivors recalled the eerie quiet that followed attacks, the water still, flares illuminating the wreckage, and the haunting absence of cries or movement. The Atlantic, once a route of supply, became a graveyard. To counter these threats, Allied forces began innovating aggressively. Long-range patrol aircraft, including the Catalina flying boats and later B-24 Liberators, extended the protective reach of convoys into the mid-Atlantic, previously beyond the coverage of land-based planes. Sonar and radar technology were refined, allowing escorts to detect submerged U-boats at greater distances. Depth charges were deployed with increasing sophistication, and convoy formations were adjusted to maximize defensive coverage. The human dimension remained central. Merchant mariners, often civilians with little combat experience, were thrust into life-or-death situations. Navy escorts faced relentless stress, aware that a single lapse could doom hundreds of lives. Air crews patrolling above risked being shot down or missing their targets entirely, leaving convoys exposed. The psychological strain was immense, and yet the crews pressed on, motivated by duty, camaraderie, and the knowledge that their missions were critical to the survival of Britain and the Allied war effort. Among the Ghost Convoys, several incidents became legendary. Entire groups of ships vanished without a trace. Some reports suggested sudden storms, others hypothesized coordinated attacks by multiple U-boats. Debris occasionally washed ashore, bearing silent testimony to tragedy, but more often, the ocean swallowed its victims without a trace. Investigators relied on survivor accounts, sonar recordings, and intelligence intercepts to reconstruct events. Yet many mysteries persisted, fueling speculation and legend. Convoy tactics evolved further. Zoning, staggered departures, and the use of decoy ships became common practice. Air cover was coordinated to patrol ahead and alongside convoys, while escort groups adjusted positions dynamically to respond to threats. These adaptations increased survival rates but did not eliminate losses. Each successful crossing was hard-won, a triumph of planning, technology, and human endurance. The loss of a convoy was more than a tactical setback. It had profound strategic consequences. Supplies delayed or destroyed could affect troop movements, industrial output, and morale on both sides of the Atlantic. Germany, aware of the potential to cripple Allied logistics, invested heavily in U-boat production, improved torpedoes, and sophisticated training for U-boat crews. The stakes of each engagement were enormous, with each missing ship representing both a human tragedy and a potential shift in the war's balance. Survivor accounts reveal both horror and resilience. Sailors described freezing seas, abandoned rafts, and nights spent clinging to wreckage under the constant threat of enemy attack. Yet these stories also illustrate extraordinary courage, captains maintaining order under fire, crews repairing damaged ships mid-voyage, and naval personnel diving into treacherous waters to save stranded sailors. The Ghost Convoys were not only a story of disappearance, but also one of survival, heroism, and human determination against overwhelming odds. Intelligence and code-breaking played a vital role in mitigating losses. Decrypted German communications occasionally revealed U-boat positions, allowing convoys to adjust routes and prepare defensive measures. Yet the ocean's expanse, coupled with the unpredictability of enemy action and weather, ensured that some convoys would inevitably vanish. The interplay between technology, human skill, and the natural environment defined the deadly calculus of survival on the Atlantic. By the end of 1941, the pattern was clear. The Atlantic remained a deadly, unpredictable arena. Ghost convoys were a constant reminder of the risks inherent in sustaining the war effort, and each loss was a stark lesson in the limits of technology, strategy, and human endurance. Yet the Allies pressed on, learning from each tragedy, refining tactics, and demonstrating the resilience that would ultimately help secure victory. As 1942 progressed, the Atlantic became a deadly chessboard of technology, tactics, and human courage. Each convoy journey carried immense risk as U-boats patrolled relentlessly, striking with calculated precision. Entire convoys sometimes disappeared, leaving no survivors to recount the events, only the icy water and floating debris as a grim testament. Survivor accounts from scattered vessels reveal the human toll of these vanished convoys. Sailors recalled the terrifying sight of explosions ripping through ships, crews scrambling to abandon decks, and lifeboats swamped by heavy seas. The psychological weight was immense. Men faced prolonged fear, the possibility of isolation in freezing water, and the uncertainty of rescue. Stories emerged of mariners drifting for days, clinging to wreckage, witnessing the complete destruction of their companion ships, or encountering the eerie silence of empty sea lanes. These experiences underscored the relentless nature of Atlantic warfare. The ocean itself was as formidable an enemy as the German submarines, with storms, fog, and currents posing constant threats. A torpedo strike was only the beginning. Survivors faced hypothermia, dehydration, and exposure, compounding the already staggering danger. For many, rescue depended on luck and timing, highlighting the fragility of life during these perilous crossings. Strategically, Ghost Convoys forced the Allies to innovate rapidly. Convoy size, composition, and escort tactics were optimized to protect vulnerable merchant ships.
long-range aircraft patrols became increasingly vital, scouting for U-boats before they could strike. Escort carriers equipped with fighter planes extended coverage, providing both reconnaissance and immediate defense. Technology evolved alongside tactics. Radar, sonar, and improved communications allowed for better coordination, reducing losses but never eliminating them entirely. The German U-boat campaign also evolved. Wolf packs coordinated attacks with increasing precision, using radio communication and intelligence on convoy movements. Experienced submarine crews exploited gaps in escort coverage, targeting the most vulnerable vessels. Despite Allied countermeasures, the Atlantic remained a perilous zone where entire convoys could vanish in a single night, leaving only speculation about their fate. One notable episode involved convoy PQ-17, traversing Arctic waters toward the Soviet Union. Despite extensive escort protection, German forces struck decisively, sinking a substantial portion of the convoy. Survivor accounts described chaotic abandoned ship procedures, lifeboats capsizing, and days spent exposed to freezing seas. Incidents like this highlighted the high stakes of Allied shipping, the courage of crews, and the persistent danger posed by enemy forces. Human ingenuity shone amid adversity. Crews developed emergency procedures, coordinated lifeboat rescues, and improvised repairs under fire. Naval escorts practiced continuous vigilance, using sonar, depth charges, and evasive maneuvers to shield their charges. Technological innovations, including improved radar and sonar, enhanced convoy protection. But the Atlantic's vastness meant that even with these measures, ships could vanish without a trace. The psychological impact extended beyond the crew. Families awaited news, often indefinitely. Letters were delayed or lost, and uncertainty pervaded the lives of those left ashore. Stories of vanished convoys entered wartime lore, whispered in ports and barracks, reinforcing the perception of the Atlantic as a domain of mystery and danger. Each vanished convoy forced strategic recalibration. Supply shortages affected operations in North Africa, Europe, and Britain itself. Resource allocation became critical, with priority given to essential cargo. The Allies recognized that sustaining the lifeline across the Atlantic required relentless innovation, careful planning, and an acceptance of unavoidable risk. Ghost convoys also became symbols of resilience. Despite the danger, merchant mariners, naval crews, and air patrols continued their work. Each successful voyage reaffirmed the capacity to endure, highlighting the human determination underpinning Allied success. The Atlantic was not merely a battlefield, but a proving ground for courage, technology, and strategic acumen.
By 1943 and 1944, the battle for the Atlantic had reached a critical phase. Allied anti-submarine tactics, technological advancements, and intelligence breakthroughs began to reduce losses, yet ghost convoys remained a haunting reminder of the perils faced by seamen. Entire fleets vanished in certain sectors, their fate often only partially reconstructed from survivor accounts, debris, or intercepted communications. The Allies' adoption of long-range aircraft, escort carriers, and improved radar and sonar significantly mitigated U-boat effectiveness. Convoy coordination improved through centralized command, real-time intelligence, and adaptive routing. These measures, while effective, could not eliminate the dangers entirely. The Atlantic's scale, combined with unpredictable weather and the cunning of experienced U-boat commanders, ensured that ghost convoys remained a persistent threat. Individual stories continued to emerge, highlighting heroism and tragedy. Some crews fought fires, sealed flooded compartments, and attempted to rescue shipmates, demonstrating remarkable ingenuity and bravery. Others faced isolation in lifeboats for days, surviving on minimal supplies, enduring storms, and observing the ocean claiming vessels one by one. These accounts illustrate the extreme conditions of maritime warfare and the resilience required to survive. The psychological strain was profound. Sailors confronted the constant possibility of sudden disappearance, attacks from unseen submarines, and the chilling knowledge that rescue might never arrive. Grounded intelligence officers, convoy commanders, and families felt the same tension, balancing hope against the likelihood of loss. This pervasive uncertainty shaped both wartime planning and post-war narratives of survival, courage, and sacrifice. Strategically, Ghost Convoys impacted the broader Allied war effort. Delays in critical supplies could affect troop readiness, production schedules, and operational planning. The ongoing threat required constant adaptation in naval tactics, including the development of hunter-killer groups, code-breaking intelligence, and sophisticated convoy formations. The integration of air and naval operations, alongside technological advancements, transformed the Atlantic campaign into a highly coordinated and increasingly effective operation. By 1944, the cumulative effect of improved tactics, technology, and intelligence significantly reduced the number of convoys disappearing without explanation. Yet the legend of Ghost Convoys endured, representing both the human cost of war and the extraordinary dangers faced by those sustaining the Allied supply lines. The vanished ships became symbols of sacrifice, courage, and the unpredictable nature of maritime warfare. The long-term legacy of the Ghost Convoys is profound. They illustrate the interplay between human endurance, technological innovation, and strategic necessity in wartime. The stories of vanished ships and heroic survivors highlight the extremes of risk and resilience. The lessons learned informed post-war naval strategy, convoy operations, and anti-submarine tactics for decades to come. Ultimately, the Ghost Convoys stand as a testament to the courage, ingenuity, and determination of Allied sailors. Their sacrifice ensured the survival of nations, the continuation of the war effort, and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. The Atlantic, vast and merciless, claimed many lives, but those who navigated its perils embodied the resilience and strategic brilliance that became the hallmark of Allied victory.